Hello, and welcome to the Preservation Sprint 18 demo. We will start as usual with the steps to production. At a high level, what we've finished in the last sprint is we've wrapped up implementation of checksum validation. We have wrapped up, we believe, implementation of the robots code, both porting the old robots and implementing the new robot that we needed. We have gotten a start in on replication, and there are a couple of other miscellaneous things, actually. That last one got demoed last time. For checksum validation, the things that we've done are we have finished fixing the preservation copy status update. Sorry, we'll just show a little code here for a second. But basically, we did some refactoring, which made things a little bit cleaner and allowed us to set the status properly when checksum validation succeeds or fails on an object. And we have some follow-on work to do there, probably as tech debt cleanup with making the other status checks a little bit more honest. We are also running checksum validation against all of our storage routes on production with only the MD5 checksum for now. We'll turn on the other checksums later when we're doing regular fixity checking. One odd thing that we noticed when we ran on stage was that in one case it actually took a little bit longer with just MD5 by 10 hours, although that could have been, other things happening on the machine. There could be outside influences besides just the checksum computation, more in line with our expectations on disk 10. With all 3 checksums, it took 5 days, but it only took 3 days and 14 hours with just the MD5 checksum enabled. So that's running on production, and we will have stats to show here when those routes complete, both in terms of runtime and status of the objects that we've checksummed. So let's see, for robots, we have hooked up the re-implemented versions in production. I'll bump that up a little bit. You can see that the preservation robots machines are responsible for having processed these steps. So that is a good sign that our code is working in production. And also Ben checked those, checked some objects and things are looking good. We've done some manual testing and verified that things are working as expected. The new update catalog robot has been completed. We have not actually wired it up in production yet. We're waiting for the seeding of production to finish so that we don't get unexpected version errors every time a version is updated. That way the catalog is in line with what's already on disk. We also have some nice documentation. We have both a README for the preservation robots with some brief descriptions of the steps, what the different robot steps are responsible for, and just the usual setup information, whatnot. Naomi also created a great testing document, which is a number of pages of how to run an object through the version, accession, and preservation workflows. We use that to do our manual testing when wiring up the robots in stage and production. And our hope is that it will be a useful resource in DLSS in general as we're working with robots. Let's see, we deprecated 3 repos. Sorry, I will see if I can pull up a link quickly here since I do not have that prepared. But basically, we deprecated the old preservation robots So the SDR preservation core, which is that stuff, and 2 gems that were only consumed by the old robot suite, archive utils, and SDR replication. So we hope that this kind of winds down our effort to modernize that old code and make its structure a little bit saner, a little bit more in line with our current practices. And let's see, we also ported, sorry, I did not have this pulled up either, but we ported 3 error reporting scripts over to the new preservation robots code base, and wrote some nice new tests for those. Those were kind of had a lot of bash. Those were written in bash and had a lot of indirection and were untested. So we hope that that will be more maintainable going forward. Sorry, I would have just showed code anyway, so I won't bother to keep trying to pull that up. And then we got a good start on replication. Joe kind of led the charge on diagramming out the workflow, the information flow for the queuing choices that we made across probably 3 meetings across a couple weeks in determining how we would replicate archive versions to endpoints. In brief, things will be writing zips for archive versions to a central zip storage file mount, network file mount. And we've kind of tried to modularize things so that there are that we have seams in the form of queues on all the points where things could go wrong or things take a long time to run. Just making the right things asynchronous, making zips and deciding where those zips go and uploading them to the endpoints, and then different things that are concerned with the results along the way can listen to those queues for status events. We also had a good meeting yesterday where we kind of did some preliminary discussion on how to expose this information about in-flight objects to people like Ben who would be concerned about things failing to replicate or just general status of the things that we're preserving. And we also have a as yet unreviewed pull request for this diagram, implementing stubs in preservation catalog of the robots that are outlined here. And all of this will live in the preservation catalog code base. For now, we will probably dedicate specific machines to running specific areas of functionality. But you can imagine that in a further follow-on work cycle down the road, the things that are especially resource intensive could be re-implemented in some more efficient way, since they are just kind of subscribing to queues and publishing messages and are not necessarily aware of the deeper business logic of preservation catalog, especially for things like creating zips and delivering zips to endpoints, which are not especially tied to the other preservation logic. Whereas we recognize in the diagram that things like recording results and deciding where zip files go is a little bit more intimately tied to the preservation catalog logic. And then as one final thing, I'll show, let's see. We implemented OK Computer so that we can do some status checking. Not connecting. Anyway, we implemented OK Computer in the typical fashion. Right now, we are, oh, this may not be deployed to production yet. currently, it is just checking to see whether we have the objects we'd expect in the database, things like endpoints and preservation policies. And we are checking to see whether the lag on overall checksum validation is too long. And that sort of thing. We imagine that we will refine that as we go along and discover more things that we need to monitor the health of. That, I believe, concludes the Sprint 18 demo. Tune in next time for hopefully more progress on replication.